Hey guys, this is tutorial number 8 on arrays. So we're gonna start with what we left off in tutorial number 7, where we wrote our first class. Let's see what that was. So we had a class that was a ball bouncing around the screen. And if we can see the code here, we open a second tab and we use one function run that will represent the collection of functions that build the behavior of the class. In this case, it's just first display function, moving around, bouncing with the borders, and also some idea of gravity. So what we're going to see now is what is the structure to actually store a collection of these classes, and that's an array. So to start doing that, we will remove some of these elements, the second and third element, and we're gonna redeclare this instance of the class not as just one ball, but as a collection of balls. How do we do that? We use these square brackets to define that this is a collection or an array, right? So now the variable name or the name that we will use for the instance of the class won't represent just one element, but it will represent many of them. So we're going to say something like ball collection, right? Just to be clear that this doesn't represent just one element, but many. And the other thing that we need to declare is the size of this array. So we'll say equals new ball 20, right? What we're saying here is that the type of elements that will be included in this array is from the type ball. And the size of this array, so how many elements can we put inside the array, it's logged to 20 elements. We will see how other structures allow for a more dynamic definition of size, but for now we're going to stay with a rigid structure of size, that it's this 20. So now we're gonna also remove what we have here, and we're gonna say ball collection element 0 just by typing these square brackets and defining the first element 0. We can add a new instance of the class in that slot. These elements represent the 20 elements that we defined here, so we can go up to 19 and store different elements in this collection. For now we're going to just add one, and we'll see how to do that with a for loop. So let's say something like this. So in this case we are doing exactly what we were doing before, but we are storing our instance of the class inside the first slot of our array list, and we're just going to call the function run on that first element. That is the only one that has been initialized. So this seems to work. So at this point we can actually include for loops, two for loops basically. One is the one where we actually build the class here. So we need to add a for loop here. So we're going to say something like for integer I equals 0, I smaller than 20, that is the size of our array, I plus plus, right? So in this way we're generating 20 elements. The thing that we need to use here is I here. Why do we use the I here? Because we're defining 20 elements. We're going to define the element number 0, that is the first in the array, and we're going to create a class. Second time around in the for loop, we're going to define the element 1, that it's another instance of the class, and so on and so on. So we're going to generate 20 elements. The only problem that we're having here is that all of these elements will appear in the same position in the screen, and they all have the same behavior. So we might generate 20 elements, but they will be on top of each other. So just to change that, we're going to include a new function here that it's random. So we're going to say random And random is a function that allows us to use one number or two numbers to specify a random value between two numbers, for instance, right? So we want to generate something between, let's say, 0 and the width of the window. So 0, width. But all of them will be in y 200. We can also say here random 0 or 0, 200. So they will all appear randomly across the screen in any position in the screen in X, but in Y they will be from 0 to 200. So most of them will be in the top, right? This random value will change every time that the for loop runs. So each instance of the ball will appear in different positions. If we try to run this, we will only see one element in the screen, because we're calling the function run of just that first element, the element 0. So we need also to make a for loop very similar to this one to run or call the function run on each one of them, right? So let's do that. So for, you can copy paste it from the previous one. It's exactly the same, right? I smaller than 20. I plus plus, right? And then instead of running just the element 0 20 times, we will run each one of them by using I. Again, the idea that the for loop is I is changing, so first it will call the run function on this first element, element 0, then element 1 up to 20. So we will see if this is working. Great. So you can see that we initialize 20 elements that appear randomly in the screen in different positions, each one of them, and we're calling the functionality run for all of them. So that's pretty straightforward. The problem is that if we want to change here the size of the array, let's say to 100 balls instead of 20, we will have to go back here in the for loop and specify again 100 and 100. And if this is a more complex script, we will see that that's not really the best way to go. So we want to build some structure that allows us to change just this number once, and all these other numbers will change. For that, there's a function that we can use that is using the name of our collection and dot length, right? This means that it will go from 0 to the size of this collection. If it's 100, it will be 100. If it's 20, it will be 20, and so on. Most collection systems or array systems, array list as well, has a similar function called the size of the array. We will see that they have this functionality. So we're basically just changing this number of balls, and we can go really crazy with this and push it to a bigger amount, and we will see that, well, the script is running a little bit slower, but, and of course we still have some problems here, but the general functionality of one class, it's happening across 1,000 instances of it. So this is how to build an array.